What's up, everyone? It's the Benchwarmers, and today, with the upcoming 2022 NBA draft this Thursday, we are doing a live mock draft. This will probably be our only mock draft, seeing as the draft is going to be coming up in just 3 days. But it's definitely really awesome to get an insight into some of these players and how we see them potentially fitting into the teams who are in the lottery. A lot of these teams, this is their highlight of their year. They've been losing so much the entire year. The opportunity to get some of these young prospects who've flooded the college and professional scenes, both within the nation and outside of it. It's definitely going to be a fun experience, and we're excited to watch the draft. So without further ado, let's get started with the first overall pick.
Yeah, at number one, we have the Orlando Magic, and I have them going with Duke's Paolo Banchero. Now, there's kind of three top players in this class, clearly Banchero, Jabari Smith, and Chet Holmgren, but I like Banchero here most at number one because I feel like what the Magic need is just a pure scorer, which they don't really have at this moment. They don't really have like a true number one option, but Paolo's a guy who can, handle well and score well. And also is a decent playmaker at his size. I think really just the main problem with him in his offensive game would be his 3 point shooting. Um, but I think in general, just his overall offensive skill set, even though he's probably not the best defender out of these top three, is enough to warrant the number one overall pick for him.
As we move to the second overall pick, we have a team in the Thunder. We're definitely in a rebuilding mode and aren't expected to do anything soon, which is why, in the comparison between the other two players among the top three, Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren, I will pick the one who, in my opinion, has the higher ceiling, but also the lower floor, which is Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren performed really well. He was highly touted throughout high school and in college at Gonzaga. He was part of a very strong team and averaged around 15 points a game and surprisingly enough, shot around 40% from three and had nearly 4 blocks per game, even given Gonzaga's very tough schedule, leading them to a number one seed. But I think a lot of things would come up with this game. He's a very raw player. He's 7'1", 195 pounds, so he is very weak. He does not have an NBA ready body. The Thunder will have to develop him. You don't want him turning into like Moses Brown, who the Thunder actually had for a few games. You want him to be a versatile guy who can play both the offensive and defensive end. And in order to do that, that requires a lot of development. And I think he can be. At his best, I think he's a combination of Kristaps Porzingis and Evan Mobley. And I think that will fit really well along with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, and the rest of the Thunder.
At number three, we have the Rockets, and I think the pick is pretty obvious here. It has to be Jabari Smith. Basically, just for the Rockets, they take whoever out of the top three is still left there. So I actually really like Jabari Smith here for them because obviously they just traded away Christian Wood, and with Jabari Smith, you're getting a lot of you're getting at least some of the same offensive skill set, especially with the 3 point shooting ability. And I think you're also getting someone who's clearly a better defender than Christian Wood. So I think he'll be a solid replacement, and it'll make the trade worth it for the Rockets.
As we move on to the fourth pick, this is where the floodgates really open, and there's probably 7 to 10 names who will start to creep up towards potentially being in this range from 4 to 10. But I think personally, with the Kings here, given their roster having two very young guards in De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell, along with a solid group of veterans like Rashawn Holmes and Harrison Barnes, I think the pick is in the front court with a player like Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray had a strong sophomore season for the Iowa Hawkeyes this past season, picking up where Luka Garza left off last year and averaging 23 points a game and around 7 rebounds. And it basically, he stepped up massively, was really efficient. He actually shot the three ball quite decently with around 40% from the three, with around 4.5 attempts per game, which is quite good for a power forward. And being 6'8", I think he could really be that dynamic forward at the next level. He is slightly slow for a like combo forward, so he won't be able to match up with like the LeBron James and Andrew Wiggins of the world. But I still think that he will play really well at the four position, and he is a complementary piece who can play inside, play at the four, and in some ways, I think that he is even better than a player like Jabari Smith in certain ways. But I do think that Jabari Smith has him on the defensive end. However, Keegan Murray definitely would fit really well with this Kings roster if he's able to develop and flourish alongside the other young pieces on the team.
Yeah, next up with the Pistons. This is a team that has kind of a lot of holes. It's not a very solid team at this point. Really, just Cade Cunningham and Jeremy Grant are really their only two valuable pieces. So I think they should just go best player available here. And for me, that's Jaden Ivey. It may be a little bit strange, I guess, to take so many point guards with your just like with your like first draft selections in like multiple years in a row, with like Killian Hayes as well. But I really don't think that Killian Hayes is going to be a long-term part of this team. He just hasn't really proven that he like fits the system. And I think a combination of Jaden Ivey with Cade Cunningham can really work out because like both of them can play both point guard and shooting guard. They both have the playmaking ability and even the shooting ability. And then also Jaden Ivey's kind of defense is kind of the main thing he needs to work on right now. And I think Cade Cunningham is someone who's stronger in that aspect, who can kind of cover up for Jaden Ivey's mistakes at times.
Next, we have the Indiana Pacers at pick 6, and I have them taking a shooting guard from Arizona, Benedict Mathurin. Now, Benedict Mathurin is a big guard. He is like 6'7", and he plays even bigger. He's a really great spot-up shooter. He shot 42% from three in his first year in college, and even though it dipped down to around 37% with a bit more attempts and a bit more focus on the defensive end, I still think he's a really strong shooter. He's a great scorer. He isn't afraid to drive at the rim, and he was primarily the primary reason why Arizona had such a good record this year with only two losses in the regular season. He just knows how to win. There were several games in the tournament, including where Arizona shouldn't have won. But Benedict Mathurin made some clutch plays on both ends of the floor. Even though he isn't touted as a great defensive player, he can definitely step up to that level when it comes time to, and that talent can be refined at the next level. I think Benedict Mathurin overall is like, he's really good. He has really strong athleticism. He can score the ball well, and when he needs to, he can defend well. So on a team like the Indiana Pacers, who just needs more bodies, especially to stay healthy, this guy is a plug-and-play guy who can play any position. So regardless of roster volatility with players such as T.J. Warren, Karis LeVert, and Malcolm Brogdon, I think that he can still fit into this team.
Yeah, next up we have the Trailblazers, who really have had a fall from grace this year. Damian Lillard just doesn't really have the help he needs. Obviously, they lost CJ McCollum and Norman Powell at the wing spot, so I think they really should go with a wing here to replace them, and that would be Shaedon Sharpe. Shaedon Sharpe is one of the most interesting prospects in the draft because he has incredibly high upside. We saw with his high school tape that he's a great defender, incredibly athletic, can shoot the ball well, and can even score inside well as well. But the only problem is he didn't play a single game in college. So he hasn't played, basketball at a high level in a long time, and we don't really have tape on him recently. So he's a very, very risky pick at this point just because he doesn't have that college experience. So there's a chance he could be even the best player in this draft, to be honest, but there's also a chance that he might be a complete bust.
And now we move on to pick 8 with the New Orleans Pelicans. And I have them taking Dyson Daniels from Australia. I think Dyson Daniels reminds me a lot of Josh Giddey and LaMelo Ball from previous years, considering they both come from Australia and are pass first and can score point guards. I think that he definitely is that sort of player. He is a big guard. He is 6'7". And even though his stats might not be eye-popping, you have to take them with a grain of salt because he is coming from a professional league, not the college or high school ranks. It's a very strong, tough league. LaMelo Ball really struggled in that league, but we saw how good he was in the NBA. So definitely Dyson is a player who with development can really flourish. And I think the Pelicans need that guy to facilitate to Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson when he's healthy, and the rest of those cats. I think he definitely can be a really good playmaker at the next level and sort of be a Lonzo Ball plus as to what the role on the Pelicans could be. Because Lonzo left at Chicago, that role has been filled by Devontae Graham, who's notoriously score first and very inefficient. So I think Devontae could be really good facilitating as like a backup point guard, and he can really help develop a guy like Dyson Daniels.
Next up at number 9, we have the San Antonio Spurs. This is an interesting team. I think they have some solid pieces, such as you got DeJounte Murray and then also Keldon Johnson. But really, some issues they've had would be at the wing spot. They've taken a few wings in previous drafts, like Devin Vassell and also Joshua Primo. But so far at this point, neither of them have really panned out as the Spurs would have wanted them to. So I think they should go with another wing here, and that's going to be AJ Griffin. AJ Griffin, I think, provides a lot of value to the Spurs because I think they really need some more 3 point shooting at this point. And then also, he's a relatively solid defender. And I think he just fits into kind of the system that the Spurs are trying to build there. He won't need really the ball that much in order to be successful. The only problem is he does have some injury concerns, and that's kind of why he's been falling a little bit in the kind of recent mock drafts we've been seeing. But I still think he's worthy of a top 10 pick here.
And with that, we move to the 10th pick with the Washington Wizards. And I have him selecting Duke big man Mark Williams. That makes it back to back Duke picks and the third pick in the top 10 from Duke University. And I think Mark Williams is the sort of Clint Capella of this draft. I think that he can really, he's a really strong rebounder. He averaged around 8 a game, with 3 of them being offensive. And that's with players like Banchero and other bigs who Duke was playing in the rotation. Getting rebounds. Duke was a very big team this year, so a lot of people were getting rebounds, and he was still able to impact the glass. Also, he's really efficient. He was shooting 70+% in basically every single game, and he was always there making buckets when you need them. He averaged double-digit points on a crowded field in Duke alongside Paolo Banchero, and definitely was a really, really strong defender, averaging around 3 blocks a game. I think besides Chet Holmgren, he's probably the best shot blocker in this draft. And yes, that includes other players like Jalen Duren. I think that Mark Williams has definitely the NBA ready body. He looks like a man amongst boys sometimes, and I think he'll definitely fit well into the Wizards, especially considering that Thomas Bryant is a free agent now. I think him alongside players who are, I guess, more offensively oriented, like Rui Hachimura, Denny Abdia, Bradley Beal, etc., will definitely help the Wizards on that end and can turn them into a good combination of both offense and defense.
Next up at number 11, we have my favorite team, the New York Knicks. This is a team that's been pretty trash for quite a while now, and I think a player that can really help them turn around the franchise is going to be Jeremy Sohan. Um, I think he fits what the Knicks are trying to build perfectly on both offense and defense. We know that Thibodeau really likes, he really prioritizes defense, and I think Jeremy Sohan is a player that can guard basically all 5 positions. He's a little bit like Ben Simmons in that kind of way, or at least in in the good kind of way, because he has the size to defend kind of in the paint, but also the athleticism to defend some guards. And then on offense, he fits with the Knicks as well because what the Knicks really lack recently is solid playmaking. I mean, last year we were running like Alec Burks at point guard, which is just not necessarily a great idea. We really need someone that can ball handle and distribute very well, and that's Jeremy Sohan as well. So I think he really fits on both sides of the ball what the Knicks are trying to build.
And next at number 12, we have the Thunder with their second lottery pick this year. I guess we'll have to get used to the Thunder having a bunch of first round picks for the next few years. And I have them taking a shooting guard from Wisconsin, Johnny Davis. Now, considering they already drafted Chet Holmgren in our mock, they already have their front court guy. I think that looking back to the backcourt, even with players such as Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already there, is definitely a place to go. Johnny Davis was asked to be a go-to scorer at Wisconsin, and he definitely showed through, averaging around 20 points a game on around 42% shooting. And I think this is sort of a role which he accepted, but I don't think this is the role which he needs to be at the next level. I think in the next level, he'll be a player sort of like Jordan Clarkson, but also a decent defender. Basically Jordan Clarkson plus. And I think that's the role he'll be. He'll be an amazing 6-man at the next level. And I think that he can especially take some bad shots at times. So he shouldn't be asked to be the focal point of the offense. But I still think that he has a lot of upside. He has a bigger body. He can definitely guard the 1 through 3 positions when he needs to. And he can score the ball. He can put the ball when the team is not able to score. He can be plugged in and he can get a bucket when he needs to. Even those tough shots against good defenses, he'll still be able to score them. Even though his 3-point volume and efficiency dipped in his sophomore season, I still think that he'll be able to bring them back up in an NBA system that uses him correctly. And I think if he's used quite well as a 6-man role, he can be one of the best 6-man to ever grace the floor.
With the penultimate pick in the lottery, we have the Charlotte Hornets here. And this is a team that actually has some decent pieces, obviously, all around. But I think their main concern right now is at center. You don't really want Cody Zeller to be your kind of number one option long term. So I have them going with arguably the second best center, second or third best center in this draft, and that's going to be Jalen Duren. He is kind of the perfect, basically, big man, I guess. does basically everything you'd need a center to do. He rebounds well both offensively and defensively, and he's a good defender who can contest and even block a lot of shots. And he's a great vertical for his size to do both of those things. He's not going to be like this electric offensive player who's going to knock down threes or anything like that, but he gets the job done. He can post up well and score in the interior fairly well. So that's basically what the Wizards need at this point, or not the Wizards, the Hornets.
Yeah, and now with the last pick of the lottery, we have the Cavs. The Cavs, for most of the season, were looking to be maybe a 4 or 5 seed, but at the end of the year, their youth caught up to them, and injuries also caught up to them, and they ended up falling out of the playoffs entirely. And I think this is not. It obviously wasn't as the Cavs hoped, but it was still a very successful season for a team which many thought would end up being a 13 or 14 seed. And I think with a healthy group back, they have strong players at every position except for shooting guard. I think Colin Sexton is the odd man out, and he doesn't really play as shooting guard. He's like 6'1". He's a point guard, but Darius Garland is obviously better at this point, being an all-star. So I think he will end up either being a six-man permanently or being traded. I think I'll have him being replaced by a guy like Ochai Agbaji. And the Cavs are in a sort of young win-now mode, and I think that having a guy who doesn't have to develop will definitely help them. A lot of these players that they have are already very pro-like young players. Darius Garland, he had to develop for a couple of years, but now he is definitely pro-ready. He's an all-star ready. Evan Mobley, even though he was a rookie last year, played like a 10-year vet. You have other players like Jared Allen, who, although they're young, they can play at an elite level. And I think the best comparison for that to add them is Ochai Agbaji, who was a 4-year college player at Kansas and led them to a national championship last year, averaging around 19 points on 53% shooting and 40% from three, which is anything you can ask for. This can even translate a little bit to the NBA. He'll definitely be a really strong player. I see them also as a pretty decent defender, but even if he isn't that good of a defender, that'll be made up by guys like Isaac Okoro who can also defend on the wing. So I think just overall, he definitely fits into this new look Cavs culture of a team who definitely wants to compete in the Eastern Conference for years to come.
Yeah, that wraps it up for our NBA lottery mock draft. Let us know which picks you agree with or disagree with. If you liked the video, remember to like. If you didn't, let us know why in the comments below, and we will try to change it in the future. This is the Bench Warmers, and we're signing out. See ya.